The Tolkien Road, Episode 42, The Silmarillion, Chapter 11, of the Sun and Moon and the Hiding of Valinor. Alright, go ahead. The Tolkien Road, 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 the Tolk
Hey there, fellow travelers. Welcome to the Tolkien Road, a long walk through the works and philosophy of J.R.R. Tolkien. On this episode, we continue our discussion of the Silmarillion with Chapter 11, of the Sun and Moon and the Hiding of Valinor, wherein we learn of the origin of the Sun and the Moon and how it all fits into the Valar's plan. By the way, if you haven't already, please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes. We'd love to know what you think of the podcast. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Tolkien Road. It's John here.
And Greta.
What's up? What's up?
Me or the listeners?
Everybody.
Everybody.
You too. You're allowed to say what's up.
What is up? There's football on.
Yeah.
In our house right now.
Yep.
Best thing about fall, y'all. Football.
Yeah.
Yeah. And leaves.
Mm-hmm. And another episode of the Tolkien Road.
Of course.
Yeah. But that goes on all year, so you can't really say that's the best thing.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, so been gone for a little while. Sorry about that. Yeah, you know, it's well, so I'll just go ahead and tell what's been going on. So unfortunately, my brother passed away, and yeah, you know, that was it was pretty tough. It's pretty tough to go through, and just needed to take a little breather from recording podcasts, as I'm sure everybody can understand. But you know, the road goes ever on, and so we're back on that road. And we're ready to get rolling again. Yeah. So, yeah. So hopefully we won't.
Too rusty.
Yeah. You know, it's fun. We had originally planned to record this episode a couple weeks ago, and then my brother passed away before we could get around to recording it. So we read this chapter. Then before that. So it's been a couple of weeks, so I think we might both be a little bit rusty on this chapter, but we got our notes and everything going on.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But we're doing Chapter 11 of the Sun and Moon and the Hiding of Valinor.
Thankfully, not a whole lot happens in this chapter.
Yeah.
So it's not like if we do miss some things, it's not going to be detrimental to the overall plan.
Yeah, that's right? True. Yeah. Well, you know, I don't think we'll miss anything. I don't think we'll like...
Oh, no, I'm not saying that we would intentionally, but, you know, just because it's not as fresh in our minds. We may not remember everything we wanted to say. But we'll do our best. We'll do our best. Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, let's go. Let's just go ahead and get this party started.
Let's do it.
So, it is haiku time.
Haiku time! Turn it up. There it is. I know y'all have missed this. That's what I've missed most.
You know, it's, you just open iTunes and play it if you really miss it that much.
For real?
Yeah, of course.
I didn't know that. Boom. Nice. Love it.
Yep.
Man.
Yeah, we're I'll just go ahead and tell you we've got an alternate haiku theme. Didn't make the cut. Yeah, we're kind of one eye on the Navy versus Memphis football game, and we're Navy fans. That's where I went to school. So if you hear us just randomly kind of shriek in the middle of the episode at different things, it's because of that. It's because of the football game going on, and Navy just scored a big touchdown, up 31-20. So that's pretty awesome. But
that's pretty awesome.
Let's try not to really get involved too much in the play-by-play.
Let's try not to. I'm wondering actually how many listeners have actually stuck with us through this introduction, because first we admitted that we're like super rusty on this chapter, and now we've told all of them that we're watching the football game while we're doing this.
Well, we're keeping it real. We're keeping it real.
I'm just saying thank you to all of you who are still here. Because,
he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone.
I'm not saying that we were sinning.
I'm sure. No,
I was just saying.
I'm not either. I'm just saying there were. I'm sure everyone out there that is alive in the 21st century with iPhones and all the other gadgets that exist knows what it's like to be distracted by multiple different things at one time.
I guess that's true.
So, hey, and I will say that I think that being distracted a little bit is kind of Tolkienian, because it took the guy like 20 years to write The Lord of the Rings, and it took him a whole lifetime to write the Silmarillion, and then he never even finished it.
I thought that was more due to his perfectionism, not so much to allow
him to be
distracted.
I think they go hand in hand, though. Like perfectionism, I think sometimes can lead you to get distracted, to not want to start, or maybe it's more like procrastination.
Right.
It's related to perfectionism. I think there was some of both, though. I think he did tend to he would like start writing this story, and then he'd be like, oh, I bet there's another story over here, and then he'd go start writing that, and then he'd be like, oh, it's time to go hang out with C.S. Lewis and the boys down at the Bird and the Baby,
Right.
Anyway, all right, let's do some podcast.
Let's just do it. Come on.
All right.
Who's going first?
Well, between you and me, we can just do paper, rock, scissors.
Okay,
all right?
Is that what we're doing?
So 2 out of 3
rock, paper, scissors?
What?
Rock, paper, scissors. Yeah, we'll do 2 out of 3.
I do.
What?
Paper, rock, scissors.
God, now I'm confused. What is paper, rock, scissors?
Rock,
I always
paper,
do rock, paper, scissors.
It's the same thing.
Oh, it is the same thing.
What is it? What is that rustling noise?
It sounds like a bag being opened. It's probably one of our children doing their chores like a good child.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
Are we ready?
Rock, paper. Come on.
Oh, I wanted to see if he got tackled. Okay.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Ah!
Gotcha.
Darn it. All right, so you get to pick.
All right.
Are you going first or am I going first?
I think I'll go first.
Okay. I think that's a good call. I'm pretty proud of mine this time.
All right.
All right, let's do it.
Evil, good to have been. What strange fire is this? Now let me start that one over. I didn't get it right.
No.
Evil, good to have been. All right. This time for real.
Okay.
This time for real. All right, like I was saying, let's try that again.
Let's do it. For reals.
Evil, good to have been. What strange fire is this? The sun and moon rise.
I'm guessing that one's pretty deep because I don't quite understand it.
Yeah.
It
is pretty deep.
Can you tell me about it?
Well, why don't we move on? So I'll let everybody kind of, because I think we'll talk about that, as the chapter goes on. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as our discussion goes on.
All right, we'll keep people hanging then.
Yeah, I shall.
Works for me.
Well, do you want to wager a guess? You can wager a guess. I don't like.
No, I need to think about it.
Okay.
I need to think about it some more. Okay, is it my turn?
Yep.
All right. Right, here is mine. A gift born in death. The world bathed in black no more. Great lights in the sky.
What was the first line again?
A gift born in death.
Nice.
I was pretty proud of that one.
That's good. Yeah,
thanks.
Real well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked pretty hard on it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I'd say that's pretty profound. Good job. Give yourself a pat on the back.
I'm totally gonna give myself a pat on the back and a high five.
High five. Nice.
Not holding back tonight. Not going to do it. Do we have any listener?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Sweet.
Josh submitted a few, and
Sweet.
he actually submitted one that was written in Latin.
Ooh.
So I'm gonna try and read it in Latin, but I'm not really a Latin scholar, so I might get it wrong. But then I'll read his translation of it.
Wow, I wonder what inspired him to write haiku in Latin. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can't. It's been a couple weeks since I wrote it. Since I read his email where he submitted it, or his Twitter his tweet where he submitted it. So I'm trying to remember if he explained it, but anyway.
Okay.
And then Mary Grace submitted one too. So
sweet. All right, let's do it.
All right, so here we go.
Let's do it.
Sic Tyrionis, qui Arianum cupiebat, eam adhuc fugo. And that means, thus Tyrion, who was desiring Aryan, still pursues her. Yeah. So hopefully I got that. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and then I know he added a word in there that was in parentheses, because sometimes in Latin there are I think like pronouns that aren't that are sometimes left out.
Yes, yeah. Right, that's true.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Thus Tyrion, who was desiring Aryan, still pursues her. So.
Very nice. I like that. It's good.
And then we have Mary Grace.
Mary Grace!
The sun and the moon, so beautiful in the sky. Morgoth is fearful.
Nice. Well done, guys. Well
yes,
done.
Indeed.
I love that you all never let us down.
Amen to that.
Always have something for us. And I love it. I love it.
All right. Well,
I think those set the stage pretty well.
I think those do.
For this chapter. Yeah. So let's dive on in. Of the sun and moon.
Right.
And the hiding of Valinor.
Good job. I think you should say it one more time, extra dramatically.
Extra dramatically?
Yeah.
Alright, I'm going to try. I'll try to... No, I was going to try to do my... what's that guy's name? He has a really dramatic voice. I can't remember his name. You know, the...
Who, Will Arnett?
No,
Alec
not
Baldwin?
Will. No. Anyway. I'll try to do it.
And the moon and the hiding of Valinor.
Sean
Connery.
Sean Connery. Of the sun and moon and the hiding of Valinor. Dun dun dun.
All right. Well, so chapter 10 was of the Sindar.
Right.
And it talked about what happened when the people, or what was going on back in Balerion, while all of the stuff was going on in Valinor.
Right.
And then what became of the people who or what became of Melkor and Ungoliant when they came back over, and Melkor is now Morgoth.
Right.
And all the different kingdoms going on there. So, and then now we have a little bit about what goes on in Valinor after Fëanor and the Noldor depart, and go on chasing Melkor. So, what we find out is that the Valar are pretty broken up about everything that transpired, and really, especially about Fëanor, right? About losing Fëanor. And they mourned not more for the death of the trees than for the marring of Fëanor. Of the works of Melkor, one of the most evil. Yeah. Which is really, interesting. For as much as Fëanor kind of gave the Valar a hard time in those last several chapters, before everything, all hell broke loose.
Yeah.
They still loved him. They still looked upon him as what is someone of high value. You know.
Right.
So they can say, the marring of Fëanor was one of the most evil works of Melkor. And they said, for Fëanor was made the mightiest in all parts of body and mind, in valor and endurance and beauty and understanding and skill and strength and in subtlety alike, of all the children of Iluvatar, and a bright flame was in him. The works that he might otherwise have wrought, only Manwë might in some measure conceive. Right. So his ability to make works, to make things, was second only to Manwë. Second only to Manwë. So.
Yeah. So he was. I mean, he's that's a big loss for them.
Oh yeah.
Because you think of all that, those gifts now being used for evil.
Right. Right.
That's it's kind of like adding insult to injury.
That's right. That's right.
Because you've lost the man, and now you lose all of his gifts too.
Mm-hmm.
And not only you lose the gifts, but you know that they're going to be used against you in some way. That's tough.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's interesting though, because here, oh, never mind, I misread that. Because what's that last line that by Mondos? He's a Valar, right?
Right. Yeah. Mondos is
he's the underworld guy, right?
The Valar of the underworld. Yeah.
So here he says, "And yet remain evil. To me, Fëanor comes soon. To me shall Fëanor come soon."
Well, you got to read what comes before that. So.
Well, I did. I guess I didn't
Manwë, but at the last words of Fëanor, that at the least the Noldor should do deeds to live in song forever, he raised his head as one that hears a voice far off, and he said, "So shall it be. Dear bought those songs shall be accounted, and yet shall be well bought, for the price could be no other. Thus, even as Eru spoke to us, shall beauty not before conceived be brought into Ea, and evil yet be good to have been." Right?
Oh, that was in your haiku.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a strange line, right? Evil shall be good to have been. What's that all about? In that, I detect something very strongly Catholic and Christian in that notion, right? And it's the whole idea of the Felix culpa, the happy fault, right?
Right. A great good coming out of evil.
Right.
Bringing to light good, or bringing forth good. Yeah.
And it's like the central, it's this question of the problem of evil, and why does evil, why does suffering exist? And one of the earliest Christian responses to that idea is that evil, though evil does exist, out of evil comes great good, right?
Right.
And it's more actually properly said that out of evil God will bring greater good, right? A good that would not have been possible without the reality of the evil, right?
Right.
And now in no way does that, like Mondo says, in no way does that make the evil something where we're just like, oh, well, it's okay that the evil happened, know?
Right.
It's really, it's, I don't know, it's a strange thing. You can never, even as you try to say, well, Felix culpa, oh happy fault, you still have to acknowledge the evilness of the evil, the horridness of the evil, right? The tragedy of the evil.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But so what Manwë and Mondos go back and forth on here is that very idea, right? Thus, even as Eru spoke to us, shall beauty not before conceived be brought into Ea, and evil yet be good to have been. And Mondo says, and yet remain evil. To me shall Fëanor come soon. And so Mondo's point is that, well, hey, maybe that's true, Manwë, but Fëanor is going to be coming to me soon because he's going to be dying soon, right? Mondos has his little prophecy there.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
And Manwë, it's interesting that he says he raised his head as one that hears a voice far off, right before he says this, passage about evil yet good to have been, right?
Right.
So that's interesting because it's like he's raising his head to a voice as one who hears a voice far off. Like, Mondos has this sense that Fëanor's death is coming soon. Manwë senses that there's some great evil that will eventually happen. All right, so where were we? Well, now our secret's out. Now everyone knows that our real names are Mom and Dad.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I guess we couldn't hide it forever.
Couldn't hide it forever.
Oh, well.
Yeah. That was pretty important, needed to come get his water cup.
Hey, you need a drink, you need a drink.
You do.
Yeah.
That's my favorite motto. Personalized motto. All right.
Yeah. So you're talking about evil.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't even know
and
what I was
saying.
saying.
Prophecy about Fëanor.
Mm-hmm.
Going to be dying soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I won't drag this out too much, but I just love how Tolkien fits the this back and forth between Manwë and Mondos in here about the Felix culpa, the happy fault.
Right. Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Evil, thus shall evil yet be good to have been.
Yeah.
And then Mondos says, and yet remain evil. To me shall Fëanor come soon. And I like that he just lets Mondos kind of have the final word there. Because yes, I think Tolkien, though I think he felt that in the depths of his heart, and you can certainly see that when you read something like Mythopoeia, or maybe you could argue even on fairy stories. I think Tolkien was a strong believer in the idea of the Felix culpa, but even so, you never want to diminish the reality of evil and of suffering and of just the weight,
right,
and the horridness of evil. Right? It is truly tragic that Fëanor is so marred by the evil works of Melkor.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But so moving on, and to maybe the point of your haiku, one of the cool things about this chapter is that out of the death of the two trees, we do get another greater good.
Yes.
Well, arguably greater good, right?
Yeah.
Even though the death of the two trees was a horrendous thing, and there will never be light like those trees again.
Right.
Right. Nevertheless, we get the sun and the moon as a result. I assume that's kind of what you were going for in your haiku.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going for. Yeah. Because the gifts that was born in death were the sun and the moon. Right? World bathed in black, no more.
And I'll go ahead and say a personal note. I've already kind of opened the door to the fact that little window into our personal lives that my brother passed away recently, and I think one of the things that I've come to grips with, and he died relatively young. He was 42, and I think one of the things that I came to grips with in the last few weeks was that though it is a great evil that he died relatively young, I just have this sense that in every death, somehow God will use that for greater good, and it's not a greater good that we necessarily see. Like Manwë, we glimpse it from far off. But like Mondos, also, we're like, man, this really is horrible.
Yeah.
This sucks.
Stinks, like really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if we let ourselves get, embrace only the mindset of Mondos, it's liable to sink us down into despair and to and just crush us. And if we're only like Manwë, where we just pretend that everything, we only emphasize the silver lining, we'll seem really shallow to those who are suffering and those who really hurt.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So I think it's really, I don't know. There just seems to be something key in my mind about recognizing both of these mindsets and trying to bring them both together into oneself.
Yes, I agree.
And when you're faced with any sort of tragedy. So, anyway, and perhaps that's somewhat signified by the sun and the moon, not only as things that result from the death of the two trees, but also as just one being a very bright light, one being a kind of a dimmer light.
Yes. Serving two different purposes.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
Well, so even as hope failed and Yavanna's song, or I'm sorry, Nienna, and so I'm sorry, back up just a couple of sentences. Then Manwë bade Yavanna and Nienna to put forth all their powers of growth and healing, and they put forth all their powers upon the trees. But the tears of Nienna availed not to heal their mortal wounds, and for a long while Yavanna sang alone in the shadows. Yet even as hope failed and her song faltered, Telperion bore at last upon a leafless bough one great flower of silver, and Laurelin a single fruit of gold. I always get Telperion and Laurelin mixed up. I always feel like
I know. I
don't know why it is, but for some reason I feel like Laurelin sounds like a silver name to me, and Telperion sounds like a gold name to me. But it's the reverse.
Yeah,
you know?
I had to keep going back and rereading because I too got confused.
I think it's because Laurelin has a softer sound.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I associate it with the light of the moon.
The light of the moon, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Telperion, or like a silver light, and then Telperion, because silver, you just, I don't know, silver just seems more like a nocturnal thing, and then the gold seems more like a sharp sort of bright light.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's just odd to me that they, it's just a funny little thing that I always get mixed up by those names. But you do too?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Glad I'm not alone.
You're not the only crazy one.
Yeah. So, Telperion gives the silver flower, Laurelin gives the fruit of gold. And Aule and his people made vessels to hold them and preserve their radiance. Mm-hmm. All right. And so one of the things that strikes me as funny is that the Valar decide not to go and pursue Morgoth themselves. They decide not to go and track him down and everything. They just kind of let Fëanor and his band of people go do their thing.
Yeah.
But they do decide that they can at least help them out by putting some lights in the sky.
Yeah.
To expose the works of Morgoth, right?
Right.
Yes. With light to hinder the deeds of Melkor. And this is where we get note that men are coming along, right? That the younger children of Iluvatar are nigh, right? They're almost here.
Yes.
And so we find that the sun was set as a sign for the awakening of men and the waning of the elves, but the moon cherishes their memory, meaning the elves' memory. So the Valar have given the sun and the moon for that very purpose. So there's two Maiar are assigned to basically be the leader, like kind of the ones that carry forth the sun and the moon in the sky. We have Tilion and Arien. Arien is the one is a Maiar, is a Maya of Vana.
Right. And
she is going to she's the one that's going to be responsible for the sun, for Laurelin. I'm sorry, for the sun, for the fruit of Laurelin. And then Tilion is the one that's going to be responsible for the silver flower of
the moon.
Telperion, right?
Yeah, which is the moon.
Right.
Yeah.
Tilion was a lover of silver, and when he would rest, he forsook the woods of Orome, and going into Lorien, he lay in dreams by the pools of Este, in Telperion's flickering beams. And I wrote this down. I love how something I just continuously love about the Ainur, whether they be Valar or Maiar, is they're all kind of lazy. Here's Fëanor causing all this trouble in there, and then Melkor comes along and causes all his trouble, and here's Tilion just hanging out, being lazy in dreams by the pool of Este.
Well, he was, moonlight has that effect on people.
True.
Yeah, it kind of, it's the whole circadian rhythm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can't blame them too much.
Well, we find out later on that they Varda actually changes her counsel because she realizes that how important sleep and rest are to everything on Earth.
Yes.
So it's funny. It is a little bit funny, but it's also something that's admirable. How in tune with and commendable, and something to remind ourselves of how in tune with just sleep and all those sorts of things that even the Valar and the Maiar seem to be.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they seem like they're in tune with the, with the human side of, or the more human needs that they don't necessarily have. But I just want to take a moment and note here that Arian, who is the maiden of the sun, right, was mightier than Telperion, or what was his name?
Tilion.
Arian was mightier than Tilion because she was not afraid of the heats of Lorelin, and that's why she got the job to take care of the sun. So girl power.
Oh, that was a girl power thing?
That was a girl power thing. Yeah. That was me, making note that Tolkien actually used the word mightier when speaking of a female in relation to a male.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah. So what?
Anyways,
okay, that's fine by me. My manhood isn't hurt any.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to mention it.
Is it time? Do we need to arm wrestle? Is that what we need to do to settle this?
I'm not saying we need to arm wrestle. I'm not saying anything about me personally. I'm just saying that I like that Tolkien made the note that the female guardian of the sun was mightier than the male guardian of the moon. That's all I'm trying to say.
Anyways.
Anyways.
Tolkien was a little bit of a, I don't know, he probably wouldn't have wanted to be called a feminist or anything like that, but at the same time, yeah, Tolkien, for a guy who probably wouldn't have liked that label, he kind of delighted to, allow women to be better, stronger characters than a lot of them, lot of the male characters in his stories.
That is true. He does have several strong female
one of which we'll get to in a couple of chapters. And then, of course, one will, maybe even a few we could say we'll see with The Lord of the Rings when we get back to it. So, yeah.
Right. Yeah, true.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. All right. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that. I just wanted to make a note. I feel like you've been talking too much, so I wanted to, interject. And I thought that was an appropriate thing.
Good. I was getting tired of hearing myself talk too. I'm sure everybody at home was
the
also.
Listeners were too. Yeah. Well, you're welcome, guys. You're welcome.
You can keep talking.
Okay.
Why don't you lead us next?
All right.
Next thing.
So moving on. See, I've already established that the female guardian Arian is mightier than the male guardian Tilion, and then they start.
See, this is harder than it looks.
They start talking about. Well, it doesn't help that I haven't read the chapter in like 2 weeks.
Where's your girl power now, huh?
So then there's some other weird names that I
Good job. So then there's some other weird names, words.
Yeah, like trees and silver trumpets and Anar and Easel and Anband. Maybe we should take a commercial break.
We're experiencing some technical difficulties. We'll be right back.
Hey, Tolkien Roadsters. What's shaking? Greta Carswell here, just getting my groove on to the Tolkien Haiku theme music. Man, that's an awesome song. You know what else is awesome? Feedback on the Tolkien Road on iTunes. Oh yeah, you heard me right. iTunes feedback is one of the best ways you can tell the world about your undying love for this podcast. Because it lets those knuckleheads at Apple know that the Tolkien Road is where it's at. I mean, come on. Why didn't they know that already? Am I right? So next time you're waiting in line to pick up some delicious tacos, surfing the World Wide Web, brushing up on a Tom Bombadil factoid, or keeping it real in whatever way you keep it real, pop on over to iTunes and let the human race know what you think about the Tolkien Road. We're all dying to know, for reals. Party on, y'all.
Okay, we're back. So when we left off, Greta, I think you were saying something about words.
I was saying something about words.
Bunch of names.
Yeah.
All right.
And stuff.
Stand aside.
All right, I'll let the master lead us. I'll let our
professional Tolkien nerd.
I'll let our navigator
continue
along the road.
Yeah.
Ahead of
All right.
me. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, there is just a lot of detail. A lot of words. There are a lot of words. There's a lot of just a lot of detail about the different things that happen with the sun and the moon when they're finally up there, and kind of like it's basically like getting it all figured out about how it's actually going to work with this, because
just logistics.
Did you get mixed up like me when early on, like when you read the paragraph where it was talking about the sun rising in the west and then setting in the east, and I was like, did I read that right?
That's not what I learned in school.
Yeah, and then a little further down you see that they corrected that.
They corrected it. Yes, yeah.
Well, really, Varda just decided that it needed to go the other way. I didn't give it a lot of thought as to why that was, but I wonder why Tolkien did that. I wonder why he decided to start it out one way and then have it go the other way instead.
Yeah, that's curious. I don't know.
I don't know either.
I just confuse us.
But, well, I don't know. I'm sure we could, if we spent enough time and did some research, we might be able to understand better. But it might be in some of the history of Middle Earth works where he talks about why he did it that way. But for now, I'm not really sure. But he does cast all of this, the creation of the sun and the moon. I think it's just important to stress here that in case you haven't picked up on this yet, until now, in Middle Earth, there were no sun and moon. There were only stars in the sky. And
the trees.
And then you had the tree. Before that, way back, you had the lamps.
The lamps, right, yes.
And then you had the trees.
Yes.
With the lamps, there was always light, right?
Right.
With the trees, there was a time of lesser light, right?
But yeah, it was more like a twilight, right?
Exactly.
It was when the mixing of the two lights.
Right. And then when
there
the trees,
was still a waxing and a waning.
right? And then the trees are destroyed, and it's almost like darkness covers the world except for the light of the stars, right? And in fact, that's why, I think that's one of the reasons that Varda allowed a time wherein the world should still have shadow and half light. Part of that was so that they could still see the stars, right?
Yes.
Everybody loved the stars and wanted to be able to see the stars. I liked. I just like how Tolkien basically made this elaborate myth for the sun and the moon.
Yeah.
Just summarize just a little bit of it here. Varda commanded the moon to journey in like manner, and passing under the earth to arise in the east, but only after the sun had descended from heaven. But Tilion went with uncertain pace. As yet he goes, and was still drawn towards Aryan, as he shall ever be. So that often both may be seen above the earth together, or at times it will chance that he comes so nigh that his shadow cuts off her brightness, and there is a darkness amid the day.
So is that talking about like a solar eclipse? Or is that what that's talking about?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
I really liked that part. I think that's what Josh's haiku was about. It was about how Tilion is I forget the words he used, but he's attracted to her, right? And he pursues her. But I love, I love that to think of as opposed to all the scientific astronomy, whatever, to explain the lunar eclipse or the solar eclipse, to think of, it's just because this, it's the guy's chasing after the woman he loves. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I loved that. I love that Tolkien, you know, that was a piece of his myth, that there was romance worked into the reason for the movement of the sun and the moon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Yeah.
Well, we got... it's important to note here, too, a couple of paragraphs down, but neither the sun nor the moon can recall the light that was of old, that came from the trees before they were touched by the poison of Ungoliant. That light lives now in the Silmarils alone. So whatever it is, even though the sun and the moon are up in the sky and they're very powerful and bright, you know, each of them are just one small part of what the two trees were.
Right.
And there will never be, you know, those were some bright trees. I don't know if Tolkien necessarily just means the power of the light they gave off, but I think it was more of that what we talked about several chapters ago about the something spiritual, about like a spiritual kind of light. You know what I'm saying? Like a light that was beautiful and seemed to be the most valuable thing, worthy of just gazing upon,
right.
You know, for its beauty, and somehow could set a spark of like ultimate happiness in your soul, right? To look upon it. It's the sun and the moon just don't have that same mysterious light that the two trees of Valinor had.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Okay. But that light now lives in the Silmarils alone. That's important to stress.
And they're still in the possession
of Morgoth.
Morgoth, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the bad guy.
Yeah. So Morgoth hated the new lights and was for a while confounded by this unlooked-for stroke of the Valar. Then he assailed Tilion, sending spirits of shadow against him, against the moon. And there was strife and ill-men beneath the paths of the stars. But Tilion was victorious. And Aryan Morgoth feared with a great fear, but dared not come nigh her, having indeed no longer the power. For as he grew in malice and sent forth from himself the evil that he conceived in lies and creatures of wickedness, his might passed into them and was dispersed, and he himself became ever more bound to the earth, unwilling to issue from his dark strongholds. So even as Morgoth tries to dull the power of the moon, he can't even stand the light of the sun, right? And his trying to assail the moon ultimately doesn't work for him and only causes more power to go out of him. So Morgoth, even though he's still quite powerful, all the time is weakening more and more. So.
There's that mighty Aryan.
Yep.
Doing her thing. Yep.
And on that note, it is interesting that really seems to be the Valar's strategy here. Now, again, how right is it of them that they're basically letting these lesser being, the elves, go and fight the fight against Morgoth? I don't know. Maybe they look at it and they say, well, we didn't put them up to this, right? But, don't you kind of get the sense that the Valar should be pursuing, going after Morgoth?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. It's just this dangling question, I feel like, that they didn't go after him,
Was it a conscious decision? Do they never have a summit or a meeting or anything and talk about it? Do they?
Well,
I'm just wondering if it's not so much that they don't want to or wouldn't, as much maybe as it is that they just feel like they have, this is a priority, right? They need. I mean, and to be fair, they are in a way doing their part by lighting the world up again, right? Because at least that way, that's a way to fight against Morgoth, right? It's just to remove the darkness. Here it says that, because of the sun, he's, too scared to come out of his strongholds. But I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I do think the Valar they're doing something productive to help fight against Morgoth.
Right. No, I don't disagree with that. It's just like, should they have invested more of themselves in doing so, right?
Yeah.
Should they have gone after Morgoth themselves?
Well, don't you think the fighting is going to be more productive with light in the sky?
It will, and it's definitely going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not necessarily something we can come up with an answer to. But sometimes it just seems it's like here's these other lesser beings off fighting against this great being, and who is of their who is really the equal of the Valar.
Right, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Why is it that they ultimately decided to hang back?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that we have a completely clear answer for that. But just something to keep in the back of your mind.
Food for thought. Sometimes I'm all over.
Especially as they know that men are coming too, the younger children of Iluvatar. But I won't belabor this point. I won't draw it out too much more.
Okay.
But it is interesting to note that the next action, really, of the Valinor, of the Valar, after they set the sun and the moon in the sky, is to fortify Valinor. They make the walls, the mountains, the Pelori, even more tall, even more grand, even more powerful to keep people out, to keep others out, right? Their outer sides were dark and smooth, without foothold or ledge, and they fell in great precipices with faces hard as glass, and rose up to towers with crowns of white ice. So, no one's really getting over these things.
Yeah. There's a watch, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody's always on guard.
Right.
And there's no way to get through. Mm-hmm. But they do mention that they did not close one pass, right? Because they wanted the elves. They wanted the Noldor to be able to join them.
Right.
Is that right?
Right.
So they did leave one opening,
mm-hmm.
right? One way in for the elves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
That's true.
So
a sleepless watch was set upon them, and no pass led through them, save only at the Calaciria. But that pass the Valar did not close because of the Eldar that were faithful, and in the city of Tirion upon the green hill, Fëanor yet ruled the remnant of the Noldor in the deep cleft of the mountains. Just the rest of the Noldor are just out there Fëanor.
That's what they do best,
mm-hmm. And then finally, Valinor is hidden. The enchanted isles were set, and all the seas about them were filled with shadows and bewilderment. And these isles were strung as a net in the shadowy seas from the north to the south, before Tol Eressëa, the lonely isle, is reached by one sailing west. Hardly might any vessel pass between them, for in the dangerous sounds the waves sighed forever upon dark rocks shrouded in mist. And in the twilight a great weariness came upon mariners and a loathing of the sea. But all that ever set foot upon the islands were there entrapped, and slept until the change of the world. Thus it was that as Mandos foretold to them in Ahriman, the blessed realm was shut against the Noldor, and of the many messengers that in after days sailed into the west, none ever came to Valinor, save one only, the mightiest mariner of song. So, the Valar decide to hide Valinor. They set this great chain of isles about it, and there's basically no getting past those chains of isles unless the Valar say they want you to get past.
Right, and what does this mean? That all that set foot upon the islands were entrapped and slept until the change of the world. What does that mean? What is the change of the world?
Well, you'll see. It's unclear if that's which change of the world that's referring to, because there's a few different changes of the world. It also mentions that earlier in the chapter. Therefore, by the coming and going of the Anar, the Valar reckoned the days thereafter until the change of the world.
Okay.
So, I'm not sure if that's talking about the change of the world that happens between the first age and the second age, or if that's talking about basically the end of all things.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's not 100% clear to me, but maybe it'll become clearer as we go forward.
Gotcha. And is this some kind of like? This obviously is some kind of foreshadowing about the one who came to Valinor, the mightiest mariner of song.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know who that is yet?
I do, but you probably don't.
I don't.
You haven't read it yet.
So it's something that we'll learn in
Right.
coming chapters. Okay.
Yeah. So, as in the royal we of the people who are reading, has the audience been introduced to him yet? No.
Okay.
No, they have
That
not.
answers my question. Okay,
They
cool.
have not.
Good stuff.
Yeah, indeed. Well, what was your favorite passage?
Oh, my favorite passage. I think it was that one that we. I think it was It was that one we talked about with the traveling of the sun and the moon, where Varda commanded the moon to journey in like manner, and passing under earth to arise in the east, but only after the sun had descended from heaven. But Tilion went with uncertain pace, as yet he goes, and was still drawn towards Arion, as he shall ever be, so that both may be seen above the earth together, or at times it will chance that he comes so nigh that his shadow cuts off her brightness, and there is darkness amid the day.
Mm-hmm.
I just really, really liked that.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and it's also kind of funny when you think about seeing the moon during the day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You think, oh, that's because Tilion is chasing after Arion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can go saying that to people now, and they'll think you're crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
What is she talking about?
Yeah, that could be like, you know, maybe possibly just another way to spread the word about our podcast. Like, well, if you want to find out, listen to the Tolkien Road.
That's right. I'm like, I'm not listening to your podcast, crazy person. No, that's good.
What was yours?
The Felix Culpa passage that we talked about.
Oh, okay. That Mondos and
Right, the
Manwë.
Mondos and Manwë exchange. So,
Good stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. That was good discussion, John.
Yeah. Well, hey, thanks for sticking with us, everybody. I felt like we were a little rusty this time. You know, it's kind of harder getting back in the groove. We also got, I guess, a couple of kid interruptions there. So I think it was the most we've ever had in one episode.
Possibly. They're obviously getting back into the groove too.
Yeah. So.
But it's okay. It's all good.
Mm-hmm.
It's all good. Like you said, we're keeping it real.
Keeping it real.
Mm-hmm. That was fun.
Yes, indeed. Well, next time we'll be discussing Chapter 12, Of Men.
Of men.
Yeah. Notice it doesn't say of women and men. It just says of men.
Well, you know where women came from, right?
Maybe we'll find out when we read Chapter
Maybe
12
we
of
should.
Men.
Yes. I don't want to ruin it for anybody.
Don't want to ruin it.
I want you all to have a reason to come back next week.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. All right.
All right, y'all.
Thanks for listening, and
thank you.
we will talk at you next time.
Yeah. Thanks, y'all.
Later.
Please remember to check out truemyths.org for show notes and plenty of other Tolkien goodness. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you please leave the Tolkien Road a rating and feedback on iTunes? It's a great way to support the show and takes less than a minute. On the next episode, we continue our discussion of the Silmarillion with Chapter 12, Of Men, wherein we learn the origin of the younger children of Iluvatar. Please tune in, and until next time, the road goes ever on,